about 3 to 5 minutes.
My impression is that Governor Andrew Cuomo continues to deflect any accountability or responsibility for his decisions to admit people from hospital potentially contagious with COVID to nursing homes. So I don't see a lot of remorse. He is deflecting. One, he mentioned that things had to be done before the legislative session and it was a political investigation. Two, that the numbers were uncertain. But as everyone knows, in retrospect, New York was not collecting or analyzing any nursing home deaths, and then it was a rush to have the deaths done retroactively, which was tremendous pressure on the nursing homes at the same point in time that they're trying to care for people and continuing to admit people. So yes, I would say he continues to deflect. He's not taking accountability for his actions. And what's most important is that there needs to be accountability to the American people. There needs to be accountability to those families who lost loved ones because infected people were put back into care facilities with the most vulnerable. We knew from the Chinese Communist Party, elderly people, people with comorbidities were the most vulnerable. They were the most at risk for developing COVID and for the most severe complications of COVID, including fatalities. But yet the decision was made, and there were other options that were available. As you know, there was a hospital ship that went to New York that was barely utilized, so that there were options that could have been considered rather than returning people to long-term care facilities.
You're a former state public health official. Does his claim that this was a federal order basically to do this nursing home mandate pass muster, or how do you view it?
No, I mean, I've been on the select subcommittee of the coronavirus my first 2 years in Congress and then these 2 years, and I think it was well known, even with the Democrat majority, that the CDC had recommended that people not elderly people not leave the hospital and return to a long-term care facility, and that if that was to occur, that there had to be separation. So there was no testing done in these nursing homes in New York. They weren't tracking the number of deaths from COVID-19 either, which is important because you would expect the uptick of COVID-19 to really take off when you're with a vulnerable population and they have low immunity, so they're not protective. Again, this was prior to the point where we had vaccines. So as I said, I think that Governor Cuomo continues to deflect and not take responsibility for his actions. It's important because as we prepare for the next pandemic, we need to know what not to do. We need to analyze those things that we did well, and we need to learn from the things that we did poorly and then not repeat those. So, younger people, people who weren't at risk from death or severe complications, didn't have to be locked down. Elderly people, people with comorbidities, they required to be isolated and protected from the virus coming in. And then not to mention the employees that were in nursing homes were not protected either.
What new info, if any, have you gotten out of the governor? Any particularly heated moments in there?
I would say that his demeanor, while trying to appear calm, is also defensive. I mean, to say that this is a political investigation, there's nothing political about this. Even people within his own party in New York challenged him on the numbers of death, underplaying the numbers of deaths that occurred in the nursing home. I saw that during the transcribed interview we had. They complained about, the attorneys complained about having to come in for the transcribed interview. He's the only person that had to be subpoenaed to come in for a transcribed interview. So I think that gives you an overview of his demeanor and the defensiveness.
Do you have any comment on Hunter Biden's guilty verdict?
I think for those of us who saw the sweetheart plea deal that had originally been put forth with the Department of Justice and local individuals, that fell apart because a judge did their job and looked thoroughly at that. To see this now come about, average ordinary people would already be in jail for these types of charges. So I think it's reassuring to see the criminal justice system work. For those of us who saw the suppression of the Hunter Biden laptop, of stories related to Hunter Biden prior to the election in 2020, we think that this is a long day in coming. And so I think that, we'll see how this plays out. But I will also tell you that I have great empathy for the Biden family. Anybody who's a child, I have children of my own, anybody who has children, this is devastating to them. But there are consequences to criminal behavior and actions, and you can't protect your children from all those consequences, especially when they're adults making those decisions. And the sweetheart deal smacked of corruption, and I think that people are reassured to see that the criminal justice system has played out with this conclusion.
So is the justice system not rigged?
I think that if you look at President Trump's trial in New York and the machinations that were done to take what would be a misdemeanor, what would be a business dealing, what Hillary Clinton had done in paying for the Steele dossier under legal proceedings, that it was a trial that I think you had to bend yourself into pretzel to find out, and the judge's instructions to the jury that they didn't have to have a connected charge, but that they could find the president guilty on any of the charges, and that would suffice. I think when you look at that, there are grave concerns over the criminal justice system in that case, and I think ultimately it will be decided at the Supreme Court. Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.